I'm going to pull out some ingredients and we're going to kind of go over soup making technique. That's what I want to kind of look at right now. And then you're going to see me put together a soup. Okay. Now, if I'm making a broth-based soup, now I made a French onion soup in one of these little quarantine kitchen videos. I think that's the only soup I have made so far, okay? And so if I am making any clear soup, I'm kind of following these basic directions. Even the French onion soup worked like this, except I added the step of like caramelization to it, that process of caramelizing onions and getting them really dark, and I showed you little tricks for that, okay? But otherwise, it was a clear soup, and I want to kind of clarify how to make a clear soup. Okay, so first thing, you know, clear soups are very easy to make, as you will see. It's basically sweat your stuff, add your broth, simmer it for a little while, and you're done. But it's time consuming because you have to cut up all your ingredients, and you want to kind of, you know, sometimes look at perfect knife cuts. And when chefs are doing this, you're looking for perfect knife cuts. If I'm at home just doing my little quarantine kitchen or whatever for you guys, I don't want to waste food doing a perfect dice for a soup or a salad or whatever it is, right? And so what I want though is uniform size, right? I'll look at my vegetables and I'll see, I had a few vegetables today. I had a little, I'm gonna cheat today, okay? I'm gonna use some little frozen corn niblets. I had a little bag of it in my fridge, like half a bag of it. So I'm gonna throw it in my soup. This is all about cleaning out my fridge, right? That's a vegetable that I can't really change the size of, right? I also have some cooked off beans that I made a few days ago, and now I'm kind of down to the last little bit. Hey, I'll add those in this. You know, that's why my Mexican soup kind of came together today, because I had some beans and I found this corn, right? And let's see. So because I have these two things where I can't really change the size, I'm going to make all my other vegetables about that same size, right? Uniform sizes. It's very important for cooking. It's important for appearance because it's a clear broth soup. I don't want to have 9 different sizes and shapes and, you know, some slices and some dices and some stars and hearts and moons and green clovers, okay? Uniform, okay? Sweat vegetables in fat along with spices and aromatics. Now, are you making a curried chicken soup? Are you making a Mexican chicken soup? Are you making a Thai chicken soup? With all of these little flavor combinations I just discussed, you know, and you can make any of those. I should show you guys a book here in a minute. It's called the Flavor Bible, and I'll go grab it in a minute and try to remember to show that to you guys. Okay, try to remind me about that over here in the chats. Okay, but anyway, I'm going to sweat my vegetables, right? And knowing what you guys know now, you can make any flavor soup you want. Like this is how cooks will get dropped into a kitchen. Hey, I need soup of the day. Look around, and I look around, and sure enough, I find some corn and some beans, and I'm like, hey, I'll just make a Mexican chicken soup. Throw a little cilantro in at the end, and boom, I do it. I know my flavor profiles, and I know how to put a soup together, and that's kind of how I do this, right? How we do our job. So next thing, once I sweat out my vegetables, this is when I'm working in all my spices and everything. This is crucial. This is when I'm taking it from Thailand to Mexico to New York or wherever I want to go, okay? Once that happens, those flavors are all blended, my veggies are translucent, I add broth and I bring it to a simmer, okay? Once it comes up, I usually bring it to a full boil, and then I lower to a simmer. I never want to sit there boiling, okay? It'll knock the pieces all apart and everything, and it's just ugly, okay? It makes your stock all cloudy. You don't want to boil, simmer. Bloop, 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 okay? Just like that. Very quiet, okay? And once you do that, you're going to allow it to simmer for about 10 or 20 minutes. And what we're doing right now is, hey, I got a bay leaf in there, and I got all these new flavors that just got into the pot, maybe some chicken that just got cooked off or whatever, right? I'm allowing those flavors to blend. It's like steeping a cup of tea. I use that term a lot in these quarantine kitchen videos, okay? So allow that to simmer 10 to 20 minutes, and you've blended your flavors. You don't need to cook a soup for 9 hours, you know? You don't need to, you know, simmer your spaghetti sauce for, you know, 2 days like your grandma did, you know, none of that stuff, okay? It's about 10 or 20 minutes, and those flavors are pretty much blending at this point, okay? At this point, sometimes I do leave things out. Like if I have some cooked meat, I might leave it to the end of the cooking process because it's already cooked. That frozen corn I told you about, I'm not throwing that in the beginning. I might finish the soup with that because it's already cooked, right? So the beans I'll throw in near the end. In fact, any starchy item like pasta, rice, you know, alphabets, you know, D's, F's, and G's, all of those things, you want to cook them separately and then like add them as you're serving them. Like in the restaurants, I would cook off, you know, if I'm doing alphabets, which I never did, but if I did, I would cook all those pasta alpha letters off and have a bowl of those sitting next to the soup station on ice, you know, and you get an order for soup, you grab a bowl of letters and you put it in your cup and pour, you know, piping hot soup over that, and your pasta's hot and your pasta's perfect. It's still got that al dente bite. It's not all, you know, soaked up and soggy and nasty like you see in, you know, canned minestrone soup with the noodles in it that are just terrible, right? And so starchy items, meats, things like that, you can kind of fold those in as you're serving. That's often done along with garnishes and whatnot, right? At the end of every recipe, we adjust seasoning and consistency. Hey, there's too many pieces of things in here. It needs more liquid. Let's add some more stock in there, and then let's adjust that seasoning, right? Or let's just taste it, right? You can't adjust seasoning without tasting, and that's a very important point that is harder to get across to students than you might think. Right? It was very hard to get students to season their food. Still is to this day. Okay, so adjust seasoning. It's the last thing you do. Make sure that your seasoning is on point. And then once you're done, I mean, that is clear soups. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a few little adjustments in this kitchen. I'm going to go grab that flavor Bible real quick. Let me show you that real quick, and we'll start cooking. So that's what she looks like, okay? The Flavor Bible from Karen Page, Andrew Dornenberg. Oh, it's even turned around in the right way, okay? Karen Page, Andrew Dornenberg. That's it. The Flavor Bible. What is it? It's an encyclopedia of flavors, baby, okay? You look in this thing, let's say you get one ingredient like a duck at the Oak Park Farmers Market. I was talking about Oak Park Farmers Market ducks just a few weeks ago. You get a duck and I don't know what to cook with it. Look in this here book and look up duck. It's like an encyclopedia, you know, it's alphabetical. And you find duck and it's gonna list about 19 or 20 or 50 things that go along with duck. You have pineapple, you look up pineapple and it'll talk about what goes up with pineapple, and on and on and on. It's got everything, and it even has pages that will discuss, just like I did, the different cultures, okay? Mexican flavors, right? And Spanish flavors versus French versus Italian, and so on, right? So the Flavor Bible, there it is again in bold print, okay? Check it out if you are into cooking at all and you have never heard about this book. You're welcome, okay? Let me set that down. I'm gonna do a wine change. Let's see, Prioriat La Cartuja, okay? I got that from good friend Amy Gravish out at the Pip Wine Bar in Davis. She's been hooking up all of my grape juice needs during the quarantine. So there we go. Let's see, Tamika, thanks for showing up. Good to see you. I know her from the day job. Vanessa, Jamie. Oh, it's a good episode, guys. It's a good day. Let me get rid of chair. And you are gonna see me kick on the heat and start to get some water boiling, because the first thing I'm going to do is like just some little backstory stuff here, okay? Whenever I'm cooking, I'm usually looking at things that need to go on the fire, right? And so I've got a tomato that I'm going to show you. I got it right here, okay? And I'm going to I have to clean this tomato, okay? It's got skin on there. There's a little funky, soft, sore spot right there, and it's like got a ton of juice. It's a juicy tomato, right? So I'm going to get rid of the seeds, the juice, and the skin on this, and then I'm going to dice it up. And this is a cut that we teach in culinary school. And basically, what I'm making is like diced tomatoes out of a can, right? When you buy that stuff, you're buying this cut. It's called tomato concasse, okay? And that's what I'm going to show you today. I figured, hey, you know, I need a tomato in here. Let's show them concasse. And this is also a little technique in the beginning of it called blanchir, where we will, I'm going to kind of cut a little X on the top of this. I may as well do it right now. Let me get one of my favorite knives here. I love these little plastic guys, okay? Real lightweight. And I'm going to cut a little X into this tomato. This is a super soft tomato, okay? And I'm gonna blanchir or blanch this guy just for a moment. I'm gonna pull it out. And and I'm going to immerse it into ice water, okay? I'll get some water going as soon as I drop this, but I want to have my ice water right here. Like I said, this is a super soft tomato, okay? Again, it goes into boiling water and then into ice water. That skin's going to kind of crack and fall off of it, basically. I'm going to cut this guy in half, and I'm going to show you another little trick to get all the seeds out of it, okay? Before I do that, cheers, everybody. It is Quarantine Kitchen Happy Hour. Henri, good to see you. Nathan is out there. Let's see. Joel is here. Nice to see you, sir. Melissa, or Melissa. Oh, I'm sorry. Got to tell me how to say that sometime. And there's Miss Tamika again. Good to see you guys. Thanks for joining, man. I'm having a ball. It's, well, I don't know about a ball, but it's keeping me sane, guys. You know, I'm not really working steady right now or anything. And I probably shouldn't go out and play with the other kids. You know, I might be a little susceptible to things. And so I'm just staying quarantined as long as I am able, and I'm laying these classes on down for you, okay? Right now, I'm waiting for some water to come up for this blanchir. Once we get that done, let's see. I wanted to show you another trick too, okay? While we're waiting, I could show you another trick. Let's do this. That's quite nice. What was that called again? Creole? I'll pull it up again later. We're cooking right now. Let me show you this, okay? Some ladle, I did say ladle dynamics, okay? And so I think I've done this one before. I want to kind of talk about it again, because a lot of the time when I see students grabbing ladles, or it doesn't have to be a student, just anybody grabbing a ladle for the first time, they're grabbing from the top and it's way out of balance, okay? We handle ladles from the center. We find a balance point where it feels good in your hand. You know, you're all loosey-goose and you can cook a little bit, right? Next thing I'm going to do is I have some stock here. Where did I put her? Right here, right there. And I'm going to get a little container. And I want to get the fat off of this stock, okay? And so with this, let me adjust here. With this, first of all, you can see my stock is in a cylinder. It's in a very narrow container. And when I have a stock in a narrow container, the fat on top is going to be thicker. If I had this in a wider container, the surface area being wider, the fat would only be that thick, and it would be really, really hard to get the fat off of that surface. So if you put it into a narrow container, that's a pretty slick little trick to make the fat cap thicker so you can thusly skim it out, okay? Next thing, let's see, Jim, good to see you. Let's see, I got Paul Schwab out there. I got Henri, I got Paul again. I'm gonna come down with my ladle. When I do this, the ladle's gonna go right to the surface of the liquid, and I want the fat to just slip in over the lip, okay? Slip the lip, okay? It's gonna go straight down. Another thing is, I go down there and I put the butt of the ladle in and I give it a little stir, and the fat spreads out to the sides, and then I go in very, very flat, and I scoop up fat off of the surface. Boom. I'm using I don't have my camera today, guys, so my apologies. It's a little hard for me to kind of do the camera work on this one, so this is about as good as I got. Again, going in flat and just taking off some of the fat off of the surface of this. I don't want to serve a bunch of excess fat. And another thing, when I make my stock, I kind of have extra fat in there. I'll throw like fatty bits of pork chop, you know, ends and things like that in here in my stock pot. And then at the end, I'm harvesting all of this delicious fat off of the surface. This is fat that I'm going to be using for cooking on another day. Believe you me. Right now, though, I don't want it in my soup. So I'm just getting the fat cap off, and I'm not really worrying too much about getting liquid into this because it's all going to come out in the wash. By the way, I don't want to stir this vigorously. I'm just stirring the surface of it. I got a little vigorous there. Jim Turknet, a great technique for very clear tomato water. Is it the freezing technique? Freezing and then straining? That's the technique I always did for making like a tomato consomme. Tomato water. All right, so I think I've got a fairly fat-free surface on my stock now. Again, just going down, using the butt, giving it a stir, getting the fat out to the edges, and then I scoop it up. Scoop it up. And I got myself a pretty decent stock. Now, this isn't a chicken stock. I'm making a chicken soup here, but I'll be honest. I made a kitchen sink stock, which is what I always do. As I'm cooking, I'm doing these classes all week and doing, you know, dinner all week and everything. I'm just saving little bits and bobs. I cleaned some herbs for this class earlier, right? There's all the cilantro stems. That's the stuff I keep, you know, I throw it in a bag. So my stock is really just kitchen sink, right? There's a couple of things I don't throw in there, like potatoes and stuff like that. It's just going to make a stock cloudy and starchy, right? There are things like lemons that are going to make it bitter, you know. I don't want to throw citrus into a stock, right? All the white part of the citrus is kind of nasty. You know, so you know, things that make sense. Zucchini doesn't really make sense. Green beans don't make sense in a stock, right? So I'm going to save this fat for another day. I'm going to take another sip. I'm going to set this stock aside, and I'm going to get back to my tomato, because that water came up to a boil while we were tacking, while we were skimming the surface. Ladlework 101, good stuff. Hey, they don't show you that on Food Network, I'll tell you. I'd like to see them try. Ms. Lily is there. Ms. Rachel is there. Good to see you. Good to see you. Okay, my water is at a full boil right now. I'm going to put water in my ice because this tomato is not going to be in this water for very long. I will tell you that. I always want to have my ice bowl ready to go when I'm dropping the item. No excuses. So I've got my ice water. Let me adjust. There's my pot over there. And I'm going to drop my tomato in there. I'm going to roll it around. It's not quite enough water to get it all. And one thing I didn't do is I didn't take out the stem on this tomato. Take your stem out before you do this. BADCHEF. Okay, that tomato has not been in there very long, but I'm going to give it a little try anyway. It's a little hot right now, but I'm going to just grab a little ear. Look at that skin just peeling off. This tomato's done and it's still cooking. There's residual heat, so I'm getting it right into that ice water. Turning that water off. I don't need that boiling water anymore. Bye-bye. And, you know, hot pan, I'm just going to throw that on the back burner. And we're going to let that tomato sit there and cool off. Just chill out, please, okay? Now, another thing I need to do ahead of time, we were talking about things that kind of need to happen early in the process, right? And so I had to cook that tomato off, get that done just so I can dice it up so I can just start this recipe cooking, right? Another thing that I need for this recipe are my spices, and I had a couple of spices. I was talking about toasting those spices as a nice extra little step here, okay? Again, this is going to be kind of moist in this cooking application, and so while this tomato cools off, I think I am going to take my 2 whole spices that I'm going to be using. They are coriander seeds. They just look like little round dudes if you've never seen. Show you that. Yeah, get my hand in there. There they are. So coriander seeds. I'm going to throw a little bit more in there. And I'm also going to throw in a little bit of cumin seeds. If you've ever seen like rye seed, caraway seed, right? Not rye seeds, but caraway seeds in a rye bread. They look a lot like cumin seeds. And so I think you can see those. See how they're kind of elongated there. Beautiful, okay? And I'm going to throw those on in, and I'm actually going to throw in a little bit more. And those are my 2 whole spices, and I'm going to toast those guys off a little bit. I should have had my fire on this time. BADCHEF. So I've got a goodly amount of cumin in there. Cumin seed. I'm going to kick a little more in there. I like my cumin. And the spices I'm showing you guys, this is like bare minimum getting a Mexican-ish flavor, okay? You know, it's spices that most people have around, you know, a little cumin, a little chili powder. If you've ever kind of made anything chili-like, you'll have those 2 around. So the coriander seed, hey, you can do without it, right? Usually I do, you know, chili powder and cumin, depending on the chili powder. I do about a 50-50 blend on that, or ratio, if you want to call it that. Ms. Elena is there. So while that pan is kind of warming a little bit, I've got it cranked up, but I'm toasting here. I don't want this thing cranking. So I'm cranking it now just to get the fire going, just to get the pan starting to heat up. And then I'm going to turn it down to about 7 out of 10. Okay. I could probably give it another little blast. Okay. Down to 7. All right. Another sip. Cheers, everyone. Happy quarantine. I'm going to go back to this tomato now, and there she is. Let me put it on my board. And I'm going to get rid of my ice water. I won't need that anymore. But I'll hold on to that bowl for the next stage. And I'm going to toss my spices. I think you guys can see everything from there. We're looking good. And keep them moving from time to time. Don't let a minute go by without giving them a little toss. A little tossy toss. I love this little pan for that job. Okay, so I've got my bowl here. I'm just going to get my knife. I'm going to grab those corners. Remember, I cut an X in the top of this thing. I'm going to grab those corners and peel. I still need to get this out. Let me show you this. I brought this out special just to get my stem out of there. If I have cases of these things to do, sometimes they sell what's called a tomato shark. You've probably seen them. It's a little plastic kind of a melon baller with teeth on it. But these melon ballers, a good melon baller has an edge on it. There's a little knife edge on those guys. And I use these out in the business because I always have a melon baller around. I don't need a special shark just for tomatoes or whatever unspeakable thing you might do with it, okay? So I just got that core out of there. Again, I want to point out, I usually do that in the beginning. My apologies. I haven't done a concasse in front of students for a while. Now, all of that skin, it was just the perfect amount of time in there. This was a soft tomato, but it's still holding together. It's not mush. And that skin is peeling off perfectly. That couldn't have gone better for a demonstration, okay? Now, if I cut this tomato from North Pole to South Pole like it is now, there's going to be pockets of seeds on both sides of this that I can't access, okay? So whenever I cut a tomato in half, I usually cut it in half this way. Let me get a bigger knife here. I cut along the equator. Tossing my seeds. I'm going to turn this down a little bit because I'm kind of working on this now. There's probably enough residual heat in this pan to continue to cook these off. I'm actually going to turn this off. This pan is very hot and it's still toasting. I'll be honest, I meant to go slightly slower. Slightly. Mr. Nate's out there with Debbie. Good to see you guys hanging out. What's up? All right, I'm taking another turn in happy hour myself. Very cool to see everybody. This is a good one. Oh yeah, do. Give it a little toss. We're tossing. All right, I can set those spices off. I'm going to toss them a few more times. The residual heat in that pan is definitely still toasting those guys. If you are over toasting it, get it out of the pan, get it into something like a cold bowl or something cool, right? A plate, spread it out, let it cool off quickly. All right, so I was just talking about the direction I want to cut a tomato. Look at what happens when I cut a tomato on the equator. I can access every pocket of seeds here, right? What I usually do once I get these done, I got rid of my bowl. I meant to keep that. I take two hands and I squeeze it gently into the bowl using two hands. And that's going to get rid of most of my seeds right there, okay? This is actually a pretty beefy tomato. By the way, I picked up this tomato at OakParkFarmersMarket, one of the few tomato stands they had out there. Once you have squeezed it, you've gotten most of those seeds out and most of that juice, you're going to go in. And this is your tool right here, a granny peeler. That little beak on there is the tool to get inside there and get every seed out if you want to go that route. In culinary school, hey, they made me take every seed out. If I was turning in some tomato concasse to a chef, that's what they were grading me on. And that's what I grade my students on. Wah, wah. See how that works? It rolls downhill, I suppose. All right. No, I've never tortured a student in my life. Okay, so most of the seeds are out of there. I'm not going to worry about every little thing. Let me get the last couple out of here, but you can see that is the perfect tool for that. And I'll tell you guys, I have never figured out those sideways Euro peelers, those European peelers. I can't use one of those things worth a darn. I'll fall down on the ground or something. I need a helmet to use the thing. Okay, so I saved up, by the way, all of this tomato juice and everything, that's going in my stock pot, don't you think? That's flavor. And it's acidity. Acids are kind of nice for your stocks. If you have bones, the acids will help kind of break down connective tissues and help your stock making properties, if you will. All right, so let's keep on making this concasse. I'll be here all day making this stuff. The definition of concasse: peeled, seeded, roughly chopped, okay? So I'm just gonna go across the top on this guy, go through it once, Whoops, he's slippery. And go through it a second time. And this is going to kind of cook down a little bit into mush, basically. Again, I'm making the diced tomato that you get in a can, right? It's called tomato concasse. And this is a production technique. I've had to do that in hotels. Okay, I'm trying not to scrape my knife too much there. And let me put that on in a bowl here, get it off the board. I think that's the last thing I needed to do before we start cooking. I'm going to be chopping vegetables as I go, though. I don't really do this stuff ahead of time. I did cut up my chicken. You don't want to see a bunch of chicken. There's not really a skill to that, dicing it up. All right. So let me go ahead and get everything out on the table, and we'll take a look. I also need to do a little wipe down here. So scene change. Thank you for your patience. Let's get funky. Shay's a brick house. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm always on with the roller disco music. Oh, yeah. All right. So let me see. My ingredients. I'm going to just start pulling everything out. Those spices that I toasted, I kind of want them to cool off faster. So I'm going to put them onto a little bowl here that's pretty cool. I'm going to spread them out on there. Maybe I should have done that right out of the gate. And we'll let those guys cool off a little bit. I don't want to crush them while they're warm like that. I lose a lot of the flavor. So just roll it around. They'll cool off pretty quickly. And we'll let them sit there for a minute. I'm going to grind those up in a mortar and pestle over here, right there. I'm going to add a little bit of oregano to the mix. So I could kind of build that in there. Now I'll hold off on that. I'm going to add a little bit of chili powder to it and a bay leaf or two. Pull a couple of those out right now. Other ingredients. How's it going there, Josh? Other ingredients are, this is really what I'm going to be starting with here. I'm going to be starting with some garlic, boom, some onion, and I got a funky onion here, but I didn't want to leave it around. I want to use that thing up. So if there's any onion, good onion in there, I'm going to get it out. I got a little carrot and celery. There's that mirepoix thing, onion, carrot, and celery. I've got some cabbage today, and I've got a chunk of butternut squash I'm going to chop off of there and mix a little of that in just because I have that, okay? I don't have a lot of veggies kicking around today. I'm going to have to move some of this stuff over. Also, I've got a little bit of the corn at the end. That's going to go in at the end. I have some cooked off beans. I mentioned that I had a pot of beans around here. And so I'm just going to incorporate those near the end. And it's just screaming Mexican. I've got a little lemon in there. That's very kind of that citrus kind of works with the Latin flavors. I have some chicken. Okay, that's going in there. And then finally at the finish, I've got some cilantro. And I don't have scallions today, but I do have some spring onion tops. And I'm going to use those as scallions today. Okay, quarantine kitchen. I don't have the perfect stuff every time. I'm going to set most of this stuff aside and just kind of hold on to the things that I need to work with right now. And so most of this is moving over to the other side. And we're going to be cooking this or cutting stuff in the order that we kind of need it here. Those are finishes. Finishes. This stuff I need to start working with, and that's a finish too. So everything's kind of lined up over on the other counter there. Mise en place. Thank you, Josh, for pointing that out. You are the man. Throw that terminology out there for the civilians. Mise en place, a perpetual state of readiness, was always my favorite definition of that. Okay, so next thing I'm going to do is I got to crush up these spices. I think, oh yeah, they're definitely cold now. Once I crush up the spices, I think I'm ready to where I can start cutting vegetables and start working them into the pot.